Welcome to the Brown RISD dual degree info session. We're so glad you're all here. We're going to start with introductions of our panelists here today, and then we'll jump into a 25-minute-ish presentation from our various experts, and then we will open it up for a conversational Q&A. So I will pass it off to my colleague Jordan to introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jordan Rockford. I'm the Assistant Dean for Brown RISD Programs and the Director for the Brown RISD Dual Degree. Really excited to have you here. I will pass it over to Erica.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Very excited to be here with you all. I'm Erica Wilson, Director of Admissions at RISD. And Thea, let's move to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Thea Manje. I'm a Senior Admission Officer at Brown and a Brown alum, and I help to oversee the BRDD program as well. Thank you so much. Maximus?
Hello, I am Maximus. I'm a second-year BRDD student. I am currently in Glass and Physics. I'm the year of 2029, and I am here to relay my experience from the student side for anyone who wants to hear it.
I believe everyone here is so excited to hear it. Thanks, everyone. My name is Emily. I'm an admissions officer at RISD, and I'll be sort of moderating today's webinar. So we will go ahead and get started. Just a reminder that we have a Q&A box dedicated to all of your questions. If you have questions throughout the webinar, please type those into the Q&A box, not the chat box. And we will have someone answering those questions behind the scenes before we start chatting about those questions conversationally. So let's go ahead and get started. Would someone like to confirm with me that they are seeing the presentation? Okay, gorgeous, thank you. All right, so welcome to the Brown RISD Dual Degree webinar. Before we jump into the program itself, I just want to introduce you to Providence, Rhode Island, the home of both RISD and Brown University. Situated between Boston and New York City, Providence is the creative capital of Rhode Island and is well known for its excellence in higher education. Providence is a fantastic food city, a diverse and expansive community, and boasts some great music and comedy shows all throughout the year. As neighbors on College Hill, Brown and RISD enjoy a long-standing collaborative relationship with programs like cross-registration, shared facilities and events, and even graduate programs, allowing students at each institution to engage with both communities. One of the best and most intensive examples of this relationship is, of course, the Brown RISD Dual Degree Program, which we are here to talk about today. I will now pass it off to my colleague Jordan to introduce the Brown RISD Dual Degree Program.
Hi again, everyone. I'm going to start off by overwhelming you with some numbers. So there are over 80 concentrations at Brown, as well as the possibility of designing an independent concentration. There are 18 majors at RISD, 17 of which are available to BRDD, Brown RISD Dual Degree students. The only program at RISD that is not available to the dual degree program is architecture because it is already a standalone 5-year accreditation program. So students in the BRDD cannot pursue architecture, but all of the other majors at RISD are options. And when you add all of that up, that is over 1,360 possible permutations of a dual degree. Next slide, please, Emily. So during the 5-year program, students develop and integrate diverse spheres of academic and artistic interests. Students will choose a concentration at Brown and a major at RISD. We use the word concentration at Brown synonymous to major, so that they're basically the same thing, but we just have slightly different language. And students receive a Bachelor of Arts, an AB, at Brown, or possibly a Bachelor of Science with some careful planning, and a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from RISD. This slide you're looking at now shows a few past and current examples of degree combinations that our students have put together. With support from a variety of advisors, it is ultimately up to the student to determine their individual path through the program, the path through that 1,360 possible permutations. At Brown, concentrations range in their number of requirements. So on the lower end, a concentration may require 9 courses, while on the higher end, a concentration may require 23 courses and prerequisites. For that reason, careful planning really is required, especially for those concentrations with a higher requirement list, in order to determine whether a student can fit all of that into the course of study of a dual degree. And having so many options can be exciting, and there are a lot of supports in place to help students as they make choices along the way. Next slide, please. But before we talk about some of those supports, I want to talk about the experience of arriving for the Brown RISD dual degree program. First-year dual degree students, or dualies as they are known, arrive on campus for a pre-orientation experience that is specific to the program. New students participate in a number of events designed to help them become more familiar with their cohort, with the BRDD community, with each campus, and with the surrounding Providence community. Pre-orientation schedule lasts for a few days. In addition to that, there are also some very specific pre-orientation programs uniquely at Brown or RISD that students can participate in that may contribute to their finding community outside of the program in addition. And then after the pre-orientation, first-year students join regular orientation programming. So BRDD will primarily focus their attention on the RISD orientation in that first year because most of that first year is spent living on and engaging in the RISD campus and the RISD experience. And then in the second year, BRDD students are encouraged to more actively engage in Brown's orientation offerings. These are, sorry, Emily, step back really quickly for 1 second. These are just some images from the last 2 years, some of our orientation activities. Thanks, Emily. Okay, so the curriculum of the first year in the dual degree program closely resembles the curriculum of a RISD first year student. Students are immersed in the Experimental and Foundation Studies curriculum, or EFS, taking 3 studios each semester in drawing, design, and spatial dynamics. In the first semester, they also take a required Theory and History of Art and Design H101 course, and usually a Brown first year seminar. There's some flexibility about how Brown courses fall into the plan in that first year. First year BRDD students also participate in RISD Winter Session, which is a 5-week term that begins in early January and runs through the start of February when the RISD term commences for the spring. In the spring semester, in addition to those 3 studios, students can take 2 Brown courses, a mix of a Brown and a RISD liberal arts course, or 2 RISD liberal arts courses. So there's some flexibility in how that first year and those 2 semesters play out, even though a lot of that is focused on the EFS curriculum. Next slide. In their second year, dual degree students live on Brown's campus and are required to take at least 5 Brown courses over the span of those fall and spring semesters. Year 2 BRDD students most often also begin their major coursework at RISD in the second year. This slide presents an overview of the academic requirements that students in the program fulfill during the full 5-year process. And those requirements are also outlined on our website, which is risd.brown.edu. I'll say that again, risd.brown.edu. Just a quick overview. On the Brown side, students have to take 15 courses in residence at Brown in a fall or spring semester. They take 5 Brown courses in year 2. They declare their concentration in the fall of year 3. And then they need to complete any requirements of that concentration, whatever those requirements are, in addition to fulfilling 1 writing designated course and ultimately completing 40 enrollment units, which is the equivalent of 10 academic semesters. On the RISD side, they complete the Experimental and Foundation Studies curriculum. They take 2 winter sessions, 1 in year 1 and 1 in some future year. And many of our students take more than 2 rather, winter session courses, and that's optional throughout. They also have to complete the requirements of their specific major. They take 4 Theory and History of Art and Design courses, and then 9 liberal arts and 4 open elective courses. And those can be fulfilled by either RISD or Brown courses. And then ultimately, the program has a capstone requirement. At the end of their 5th year, students deliver a capstone presentation in which they reflect upon the whole of their experience as students in the program and their time at both Brown and RISD. Next slide, please. So coming back to how students are supported through this program and through the rigors of all of these requirements, they do not navigate this alone. A strong advising network supports our students from the first day they arrive on campus until the day they graduate. A team of trained and talented BRDD peer advisors offer support and advice for students in years 1 and 2. And I will point out that Maximos is not only our guest student tonight, but also a peer advisor, newly this season. Each student is also paired with an exploratory advisor at Brown during their first 2 years when they're exploring their possibilities for concentration. And then once they declare a concentration, they have a concentration advisor in that department. At RISD, similarly, students are paired with an advisor in experimental and foundation studies in their first year, and then an advisor within their major department once they've declared that major. The BRDD program itself is administered by 2 full-time staff members, myself as the assistant dean and our program manager, Hannah Exel. We advise students over the span of the 5 years in the program and work with each student individually to create a unique 5-year plan that helps them chart their path to degree completion. We also advise around any academic or campus life questions and concerns, and we organize programming to foster community within and across the cohorts and to familiarize students with the many resources on both campuses. Next slide, please. So here are some images from recent capstone presentations from our students. The capstones are delivered over the course of 2 days each spring between Brown and RISD commencement ceremonies. In the required capstone presentation, students share how their studio and liberal arts learning practices and multimodal thinking have culminated in their final work. And they sometimes talk about literal either capstone or thesis work that they've done in one or both programs, or what the overall program has prepared them for as they move forward into the world and into their careers. Students present for 15 to 20 minutes and then have the option to answer questions from the audience. Each presentation offers insight into the students' unique experiences throughout the program and really point to what's next. It's really a turning point. I think of it very much as a threshold for our students. And while it is a formal graduation requirement, capstone presentations are really largely a celebration of our graduates' accomplishments in the program over their 5 years. Videos of the BRDD capstone presentations are available on our website. I encourage everyone here to take some time with them. You can see what past students have studied and how they presented that and what that experience has been like for them. And then at the end of the 5-year program, students graduate from both Brown and RISD. Next slide, thank you. I'll talk a little bit about community and events. There are a lot of things that we do in programming to foster and maintain community amongst our students. But I'd like to think, personally, I think of the dual degree as a yes and space. Our students are enrolled at both Brown and RISD simultaneously, and they are fully students at both schools, and they engage in the cultures and communities of both schools. But they also share this unique third space community of their own, and it fosters close-knit and lasting connections. And we do a lot to maintain and foster that community within our cohorts. Throughout the year, we hold a number of community events, many featuring key university resources or important considerations for each cohort, such as their milestones along declaring concentrations and majors and things like that. Some of our events, though, are purely social, including our kickoff beach day each September, which you can see a photo of here. We also do regular brunches where students from all cohorts gather together over a weekend meal. And one of our largest community events is our annual student organized and student juried exhibition of works from the dual degree students across all cohorts. Each year we feature roughly 30 to 40 student works that are exhibited in the Granoff Center on Brown's campus. The public reception for this month-long exhibition draws peers, instructors, administrators, family, program alumni, the larger community all together to celebrate the work and the passions of our students in the program. And these are some photos both of installing the exhibition and the reception from one of our exhibitions. And at this point, I think I've given a broad overview, but I'd like to hand it over to Maximus for a more direct student experience.
Thank you, Jordan. So as I mentioned before, my name is Maximus Patharakis. I am the class of 2029, and I am currently majoring in glass, and I plan to major in physics with a bachelor's in science. I have my emails up if anyone needs to ask a question post-meeting. So I want to briefly talk about the 2 majors I'm in right now. Glass, first of all, is one of the smallest majors at RISD. This year's cohort is 4 people. Next year's cohort might be a bit more, but I don't think it's ever broken double digits. And I feel like that is what makes it one of the best in my eyes. It's a very tightly knit community, as are a few other small majors, and it is very physically engaging and extremely multidisciplinary. I am a huge glass nerd, and I can talk about it endlessly. But I also want to talk about physics a lot. I've been wanting to do physics since I was little, and it is a very rigorous and very challenging counterpart to the glass major I'm doing. It is a very immersive major. It has a lot of requirements and a lot of rigidity in its scheduling, which I find very challenging but very much worth it. I think getting to see that side of Brown University and getting this access to equipment you might not have had before in high school is an amazing opportunity. And I also definitely implore people to try, at least for a bit, STEM classes. Next slide, please. In my free time, even though I have a pretty full schedule, I really love to make jewelry. I've on that corkboard, I believe I've made 3/4 of that jewelry by just picking things up or finding things across trips and adventures. I think it's a very fun hobby to have, especially when one doesn't have a lot of time to commit to something equipment rigorous, if that makes sense. I also really like music. I play it in a very amateur manner, but I still enjoy hearing myself creating these songs and like managing to play these songs that I heard when I was a child. And finally, I really love film photography, even though I don't really plan on majoring in it or following it through professionally. I think it's an amazing logbook of the places I've been and the people that I've met. So I just want to give this overview of what you get to do outside of class. It is not only studying and sleeping. It is also very much having your own fun and growing as a person. Next slide, please. In terms of what I do in an extracurricular manner outside of RISD and Brown, or like rather within RISD and Brown, but outside of class, I am currently doing on-campus work. As Jordan mentioned, I'm a BRD advisor for the first years. I am also a media resources technician, where I help people with getting digital equipment from our media resources, which we have at RISD accessible to all. I help people with we get projectors, cameras, setting up projects and stuff. I'm also a monitor at the freshman workspace that includes metalworking and woodworking and laser cutting. And I get to help people out with those hands-on projects as well, which I find very interesting and very worthwhile considering I'm into the multidisciplinary of it all. Finally, I wanted to kind of plug one side of RISD that I found out later in the year rather when I was here, which is RISD Global. RISD Global presents a few opportunities per, I want to say, holiday, like per winter or per summer, where students can apply and go on a trip abroad to study a specific subject. I went on a month-long trip in Japan where we created a glass exhibition in a traditional merchant's house called Matsukura House. It was a wonderful opportunity to immerse myself in what I'm thinking of pursuing, but it's also a wonderful opportunity to meet people outside of your academic interests and actually see how the real world of what you're doing will be like. So I want to really emphasize how amazing those experiences were and how even a taste of that is very worthwhile, especially in this very formative period of, I want to say, your life. And I think that is me, so I will hand it over to Emily.
Thank you so much, Maximus. That was wonderful to hear about your studies thus far, and I'm so excited to see where you're taking things in the next few years. But now that we've talked about where you can go as a dual degree student, let's talk a little bit about how you get there. As a reminder, in order to apply for the Brown RISD dual degree program, you do need to submit an application to RISD and to Brown, as you would normally, with one additional supplemental essay regarding the Brown RISD dual degree program. So let's go over both applications, both the RISD and the Brown application, to give you a little bit of an idea of what that process looks like. Erica, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, great. So in order to apply to the RISD program, you're going to need to fill out the common application. You're going to send 1 to 3 letters of recommendation. You'll want to include your transcripts. Now, keep in mind, when you're enrolled in high school, they're not, possibly won't be your final transcripts. So these will be in progress transcripts. If you've already graduated and completed school, you would then send your final official transcripts. And then if English is your second language, we will require that you submit an English proficiency score of the TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo. And I do want to note that the SAT and the ACTs are optional for RISD. And then our application deadlines. So the BRDD applicants may apply to, this is important. This is something when I first started, I had to wrap my head around. So I'll say it slowly. You'll apply for regular decision to both schools or early decision to one school and regular decision to the other. So let me say that again. You can apply regular decision to both schools, or you could do early decision to one and regular decision to the other. RISD's early decision deadline is going to be November 3rd, and our regular deadline is January 20th. And then financial aid. So there's financial aid deadlines. They're going to give you some extra time to submit that after you've completed your application. RISD applicants, you need to submit 2 forms to be considered for RISD aid. You're going to do the FAFSA and then the RISD institutional financial aid form. We highly recommend that you submit both forms for financial aid just to be considered at RISD, even though if you're admitted, the BRDD students, the dual degree students, will receive their aid through Brown. And then, okay, so it's always really good to get feedback. So these are some different upcoming portfolio events that we have. So RISD offers a selection of different portfolio review opportunities. We do them throughout the fall. It's your chance to get this feedback on your work prior to submitting it through the application. Now, this review isn't going to, this isn't a promise of acceptance. This isn't a make it or break it type thing. This is just an opportunity for you to hear some direct feedback from a RISD's admissions representative. They'll let you know what's working, maybe something you could work on or fix, maybe the way you're presenting it. All of this is just there to help you make sure you have the strongest portfolio you can have when you go to apply. So you can register for these events on risd.edu. And now we're going to turn it over to Brown.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, so first we're just going to talk a little bit about Brown's open curriculum, which is kind of the hallmark of a Brown education. So sometimes I think it's best defined by what it's not. So typically at a 4-year institution, you may be assigned to take gen eds every year, meaning you will have to take a science class, a social science, a math. At Brown, we have none of these requirements. So essentially, you're required to complete your concentration requirements, and the concentration is just our word for major, of which you have over 80 to choose from. And essentially, you'll complete those concentration requirements, and then outside of that, you have complete curricular freedom to take whatever coursework you would like, regardless of what department it's in. And I think the BRDD program kind of epitomizes this at an even larger scale, in which you'll be completing your course requirements across both campuses. And again, really becoming the architect of your own education, as we like to say. So it's a really great system for students that are very confident in being able to make those decisions for themselves. And also students who are not afraid to try new things, get out of their comfort zones and explore as broadly as possible, which is what the open curriculum is really all about. We have a thing called shopping period at the beginning of every semester, which means for the first 2 weeks of every semester, you can go to whatever class you would like. You can walk out after 30 seconds or after 30 minutes and go to as many classes as you'd like during those first couple weeks before you decide on the classes that you'll enroll in. And we also have an SNC satisfactory/no credit grading option, which is basically just Brown's version of pass-fail. And it's a great way to encourage students to take classes that they might not otherwise take. We don't calculate GPAs at Brown, so it doesn't have any academic impact on your transcript, but it's just a great way to encourage you to get out of your comfort zone, to try a new class. It's certainly something that I took advantage of as an undergraduate, and I never regretted it. I was always super grateful to have that opportunity. So that's essentially the basic framework of the open curriculum. We also have great advising all the way through, so it's never a total free-for-all, and you'll also get excellent advising through the BRDD program itself. So I always advise students to, take all the risks that you can, experiment as broadly as possible, but know that you have people in your corner that are there to help guide you along the way, so you never feel like you don't know where you're headed. And there's always going to be a peer or a friend that you'll be able to find who's probably in the same situation you are, overwhelmed with a lot of good options. So we can probably skip to the next slide, Emily. Perfect. So I'll talk a little bit just about life at Brown and what makes up kind of this incredible group of students on campus. We have nearly 8,000 undergraduate students. Nearly half of our student body are students of color. We have over 1,700 first-year students this year. Rhode Island is a very small state, but I think that something really magical about College Hill, just combination of Brown and RISD, is that we create such a diverse community here on College Hill. So over 80 nations are represented on campus, every U.S. state. There's over 100 languages languages that are spoken at Brown. So you really do feel like the globe comes to you, which is a really incredible place to spend 4 or 5 years in the BRDD program. So something else about Brown that I really love is the extracurricular life. We have over 450 student groups. That number probably grows every single day. We have 34 varsity sports teams, intramural and club as well. It's very easy to get involved in those groups as well. Even if you are enrolled in the program, club sports are always accessible to the BRDD students. So ultimately, it really is a wonderful place to spend your 4 or 5 years, and especially across both campuses on College Hill, it's just an amazing place to be and learn and make friends and take on kind of the rest of your life. Let me skip to the next slide. Thank you, Emily. Yeah, something else that I want to emphasize is we have a real emphasis on undergraduate education at Brown. So at a number of institutions, you might have a really large population of grad students, but at Brown, it's the other way around. We have a lot of undergrads and all of our professors teach. So essentially, that makes it a lot easier to gain access to things like internships or research opportunities. All of our professors love working with undergraduate students, and they want to be able to build those relationships with you and help you out along the way. You may find situations where maybe you meet a professor who you love and you want to be able to do research with them in their lab, and you go up to them and you say, I'd love to do research with you. And maybe they say, I don't have space in my lab this semester, but I have a friend who's a professor in a neighboring department who you would love, who definitely has a spot for you. So I think that there's just something that really resonates with a lot of students that are interested in a program like the BRDD, in that it's very difficult for a competitive environment to form at a place like Brown, because truly everybody is doing a different thing. Everybody has a different course load, a different schedule. They may be living in different places. They come from different backgrounds. So really that sense of comparison doesn't really exist. And it creates an environment where you really just want to collaborate with your peers as much as you can. And, even by the end of those 4 years, it never feels like enough. You always want to be able to spend more time with the alumni network and the folks that you've met across both campuses and College Hill at large. Okay, we can probably skip to the next slide here. Okay, great. So I'm just going to go through the basic admission checklist. You'll be able to learn more about this on the website, and we'll include links and everything like that in the chat. But essentially, the admission checklist is comprised as follows. So you'll submit your transcripts to us, the Common App and the Brown supplement. You'll also submit the BRTD supplemental essay to us. You'll submit a standardized test score, either the SAT or the ACT, and we super score. So if you've taken the exam more than once, we'll take the best of both sections to be able to look at, and we evaluate everything in context. So I always say, don't panic about that score. It's just one piece of the puzzle. You'll submit our letters of recommendation to us as well. So 2 from core academic subjects, and then 1 from your school counselor. If you'd like to submit an additional letter, you are also welcome to do so. You'll submit the school forms that are required. And then there's also an optional video introduction, which I highly recommend. It's optional, but it's just such a great piece of the application. There's really only so much that you can learn from the pen and paper, from what you submit to us, and they really bring applications to life. We love watching these videos. We're also not judging production quality at all, though I know that you are all perfectly capable of putting together a beautiful video, especially as talented artists. But what I will say is, again, we're not taking it we're not looking for, again, that high production value. It could just be you talking to your laptop computer camera or your phone camera. I've seen students use the video introduction to take me on a tour of their favorite parks around town, introduce me to all of the family pets. And again, these are all great uses of the video introduction because, again, they're just showing us a different angle of you. We know that you are complicated, nuanced, multifaceted people, and it's so hard to really self-present that in a paper application. And I think that something like a video introduction really can add texture to your application and just show us really who you are. Sometimes it really just, again, it adds so much life. So again, optional video introduction. And then you also have the option to submit an optional music and or visual arts portfolio. Of course, it's recommended that you submit a visual arts portfolio to both of us if you're applying for the BRDD program. But you're also welcome to submit a music portfolio too if you happen to be a musician, and that'll be reviewed by our music faculty here at Brown. We're not holding you to it, so if you submit a cello music supplement and you're admitted, that doesn't mean that you have to join the orchestra, but it's just a great way for us to be able to see all the different skills you have and what you might bring to campus as a student in the BRDD program itself. So we have an early decision deadline of November 1st. Early decision for us is binding. So it's, that if Brown was your #1 choice, and you would absolutely enroll if admitted. And again, it's a great option for students that want to have their college decision settled. And you could be admitted to Brown in early decision and not admitted. You could also be deferred, which means that we would look at your application, which we obviously thought was very compelling and very competitive. We'll reevaluate that in context of the regular decision pool. And the regular decision deadline is January 5th. Okay, we can probably skip right ahead. Perfect. So I'm just going to talk about financial aid very briefly. So through the BRDD program, all of the financial aid is done through Brown's Office of Financial Aid. So it's for the 5 years that you would be enrolled in the program. The deadlines are, you can see on the screen, but you'll submit the CSS profile and the FAFSA to us. Financial aid can be so complicated. It can be one of the most overwhelming parts of the financial aid and college process at large. So I'll just break it down as simply as I can for you. So Brown offers, we're a need blind school. So that means that your financial need is not a factor at all in our decision to admit a student or not. We offer need-based financial aid. So how do we calculate what that financial need is? That's what we get from the CSS profile and the FAFSA. So when you submit those to us, we'll calculate your demonstrated financial need. And then as part of the Brown Promise, we agree to meet 100% of that demonstrated financial need, and we do so without loans. So it's all grants that you wouldn't be on the hook for down the line. And then students who also receive financial aid are eligible for a books and course materials program, which means the cost of your textbooks would also be covered, which is a great addition to the financial aid offers this year. So these are just kind of the basics of financial aid, but if you want to learn more, feel free to check out the website. There's also great financial aid calculators on the website, which I highly recommend using. They end up being quite accurate for most conventional family situations. So I highly recommend checking that out, especially if you're considering applying an early decision, which would be binding. So you can get kind of a better understanding of what your financial contribution might be expected to be. But just know that, for any family earning $60,000 or less, the expected contribution is $0 to Brown, with everything being covered, including room, board, and tuition, and it creeps up from there. But again, nearly half of Brown's population receives financial aid in some way, shape, or form, and it often ends up being a lot better than students think. So highly recommend checking out the website to just learn a bit more. But those are the basics, and just remember the deadlines that are posted on the slide.
100%. And I'll also note, yeah, both schools have the calculator available on their website. That's like a great first step in the financial aid process. All right, thank you, Thea, for such a holistic understanding of Brown and the first year application. I am going to briefly put both of our email addresses up on the screen so that families can copy them down. We have the RISD admissions email on the left, and then the BRDD program through the Brown office on the right. And we are both resources as you continue to move through your college application journey. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the share, and we're going to open it up for a conversational Q&A. So I will moderate and hand questions off to folks that I think are best suited to answer them, but jump in when you have something to say as well. All right, so let's see here. On the BRDD website, it says that dualies wanting to get a BFA and a Bachelor of Science need to plan carefully. So do art and STEM dualies get extra advising? And Maximus, I think you're a great student to start us off with this because you are hoping to be a BS or I forget, SCB and BFA student.
So I want to say that there's a very high basic level of advising from the get-go. So I want to say the people I interact personally most with is Jordan and Hannah through the dual degree lounge that we have over at Brown. Everyone receives the same advising plans, essentially the same advice on how to curate, on how to build the skill of curating their own studies, but it is very much also up to the student to seek extra advice. Myself, there's been countless times where I've popped in or like scheduled a meeting with Jordan and Hannah and have like freaked out about the class, or like I have a question about how to schedule something and they give me like the appropriate advice. So we receive advice passively, but it's very much also very accessible so that the student can actively engage to the rate that they want, is my answer.
Yeah, Jordan, anything to add?
Maximus, that was exceptionally well said. Yeah, I mean, we provided a chart earlier on the slides. It's available on the BRDD website to look at your leisure. But it gives a breakdown of all the different types of advisors that BRDD students have access to over the course of their 5 years. And as Maximus said, that advising is always there. Some of it is active in that we will reach out at specific times to advise around programs, around concentration declaration, around advising and registration in a specific semester. But all of those advisors are available to students at all times. And so it's really about how much support and mentoring a student wants and reaches out for.
Amazing. I have another question for the both of you, which is study abroad viable for BRDD students?
And the answer is yes. Maximus has already been abroad. I mean, Maximus is abroad right now, technically. But yes, we've had many students study abroad, both for academic semesters as well as in short-term travel courses, particularly through RISD, which are very popular. So yes, like everything with the BRDD, it does take some planning ahead for students who are interested in studying abroad. That's something we should talk about early in the program so that we can plan your schedule to make room for that. But it absolutely is a possibility.
All right, my next question is for Thea. Can you talk a little bit more about Brown and Questbridge and how that might factor into dual degree?
Totally. So you can absolutely apply to the BRDD program coming from the QuestBridge part of the app. So essentially, you'll apply to QuestBridge in the fall, and then there's a match process. But all of the decisions for the BRDD program itself are made in the spring. So essentially, if admitted to Brown and if you match with Brown, you would then be permitted to apply to RISD, and then we would be able to assess all of those applications in tandem in the spring.
That was so perfectly said. Thank you, Thea. And then another question for both Thea and Erica, which is, can you talk a little bit more about the access to advising and mentoring available at each school, not just the dual degree program team, but each school itself? Erica, do you want to start us off?
Yes, we can do that. Sorry, I was trying to type a question. So about support for individuals entering the program.
Yeah,
Yes,
and at RISD and then at Brown as well.
yeah. Well, we do offer different mentorship and tutoring programs. So there is academic support. You will meet with your academic advisors to go through and be guided through this whole process. I should probably let someone from Brown speak a little bit more to the Brown process and exactly who they would be working with. But at RISD, definitely there's a lot of different support systems for you here. And you're going to have someone guiding you through everything, helping you make sure your schedule is together. If you're having any struggles, there's always going to be different support systems for you.
For sure. And I'm assuming it's the same thing for Thea at Brown.
Yeah, it's fairly consistent. You'll be assigned a faculty advisor really before you even get to campus. And then once you're assigned a faculty advisor, you'll be assigned a Mickeljohn, which is basically our just word for an upperclassman who's like an expert in course registration and shopping period and all that good stuff. So you'll be able to meet with them during especially those first few weeks of class when you're trying to figure out how to register and navigate everything. And then when you finally declare your concentration, you will be assigned a concentration advisor. So there's basically, you'll have like 3-point people, and then in addition to BRDD advising, and then also there's just lots of other opportunities to get advising if you need it. So there's different groups on campus. Like, for example, if you are thinking about doing something like pre-med, or if you're interested specifically in the humanities, there's going to be their own kind of cohorts of advising that are there along the way. And another thing that I just love about Brown is everyone's learning as they go because of the open curriculum, because everyone is really, every student at Brown is pretty much doing a never before seen set of classes over those 4 or 5 years. So everyone, you can always rely on your friends, which sounds so cheesy, but it's really true, is that when you're trying to learn something at Brown and when you're trying to, I probably for 80% of the problems that I might have gone to a formal advisor for, I was pretty much able to find the answer out from the 5 people that were sitting around me at the dining hall, which is a really lovely experience too.
Totally. Okay, the next question is a little bit more about life on campus. I believe Jordan and Maximus again will be our team for this question. Where are dualies living?
So dualies, I can speak for the first year and second years very closely since I am going through that right now. First year students live on the RISD freshman quad. That is, we specifically so far at least have lived in Homer Hall, which is one of the which is one of the 4 or 5 sections of the freshman quad. It's available on the Google Maps, so you can see fully the shape, the axis. And for second year, we live at Brown mandatorily. Right now, we're living in Hope College, but it's the general idea, even if we change dorms from like a couple of years to a couple of years, is that for the first and second years, BRDs live together to grow that community. And then from then on, they have the entirety of what the upperclassmen, both at Brown and RISD, have in terms of choices on where they want to live. Like they can live at the above Fleet Library as in their third year if they want. They can live at, they can go through the housing lottery at Brown. So it's really just entire access after the second year.
Yeah, and I will just add to that so in the first year when students are at RISD, they're living in RISD freshman dorms, they have unlimited meal plan at RISD. In their second year, they have a meal plan at Brown, they live at Brown, and they still have the option of a partial meal plan at RISD if they're interested. And then after that point, in th years 3 through 5, students can live on either campus or off campus, and they also still have the access to a variety of different meal plans on campus if they want to eat on campus. And there's different permutations of that.
All right. Next question would be about the essay, the Brown RISD dual degree supplemental essay. Thea, I'm going to start with you. How do students make themselves stand out in this essay?
That's such a good question. We always say that, if and this would be true for BRDD too, but if you've met one Brown student, you've met one Brown student. It really is true. They're all different. So I think that everybody's self-presentation in those essays is going to look a little differently. So I would encourage you all to just present yourself as authentically as possible and not worry so much about trying to fit a mold that we could theoretically present to you. And we're not. So in that sense, we really are expecting you to tell us about your unique set of interests and your possible pursuits and where you might go with them over the course of the 5 years of the BRDD program. I saw somewhere in the Q&A, someone asked something along the lines of, do I need to know exactly what I want to do with the two concentration areas across campuses? Do I need to go in knowing what I want to do? And I would say, no, you don't need to be certain. I would say that there's probably many, if not most BRDD students change their mind somewhat, slightly, or extremely over the course of the time that they spend in the program. What I will say is that students who tend to be successful in the program end up showing us in those essays that they are passionate learners, that they are curious, and also that they are committed to kind of both worlds at Brown and RISD and are willing to take those risks to be able to collaborate between the two of them. So I think that the one tie that binds across all BRDD students is a real openness to learning, as well as a commitment to the rigor of the program itself.
Totally. Does anyone have anything else to add about the essay? All right. We're feeling we're feeling like we covered. I mean, I totally
Thea
agree.
nailed it.
No black
Thea
and white.
totally nailed it. And I also read ahead in the questions and I saw a lot of relevant questions the same way. And I feel like, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
No, I agree. I think that's totally what the essay is all about. Okay, moving right along. Thank you guys for all of your great questions. A quick one I saw, can you switch majors once you get into both schools? I'll note that both schools do not require you start undecided at both institutions. So you actually won't choose a major until your first year, end of your first year at RISD, and then like Jordan said, your fall semester of your third year. Is that correct at Brown? Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure I'm getting that right. Okay. So I guess along the lines of the application process, this is a great question. What kind of experience and attributes do dual degree admissions committee members look for when considering applicants? And what would be the difference between what RISD is looking for versus what Brown's looking for? I know you touched on some of that, Thea, but I'm just curious a little bit more about what the difference between those two applications might look like. Anyone who'd like to answer? I can start by saying the main difference that pops into my head is that the portfolio is required at RISD, it's optional at Brown. Test scores are required at Brown, but are optional at RISD. So keep that in mind as you're navigating both applications because you need to get into both schools via their own criteria before you're even considered for dual degree itself. So for Brown, they're going to have some extra essays. For RISD, we're really going to take the portfolio into account. Erica, did you have something else to add to that?
No, I was going to say, the portfolio is kind of the heavy thing with RISD. And I know someone had asked in the chat with earlier and hadn't gotten to it about, could you do two portfolios and could they be different? One for Brown, one for RISD? Yes, of course. Just follow the requirements that each one might ask you for.
Yeah,
The
100%.
test scores are the big thing, I think, are the big difference for everybody to pay attention to.
I think so as well. And I would also just add on along those lines, something that we talk a lot about in admissions committee for dual degree is just showing us your skill set, your potential for success within the program, not just within the academic portion of the program, but also in your ability to take advantage of the program in all of its forms. So I'm sort of curious from you, Maximos, what do you, I'm putting you on the spot here, but what do you think stood out about your application?
I truly think it's because I found that the general thing that has made me not more successful. That's like a very intense way of putting it. But what's made me stand out in general is when I actually find my niche in something. It's not about like having the most interesting activity or having the best grades. I've just become a very niche. I've become a very. It's about the combinations of qualities that kind of make you different than the next person, whoever that might be. So I truly think it's the fact that I like music and jewelry, but at the same time I do film photography. But those could have been three completely different things. But the fact that I do that specific combination is different from the person next to me who does another combination. So I truly think it's finding that niche and sticking to it and being proud of it.
I really like that answer.
And I would add that obviously, all students who are applying to these schools under this program want to show themselves to their best, and they're going to show us strong portfolios, and they're going to show us all the things they've done, co-curricular, curricular, academic, everything. And that's all super important, right? We want to know that students are ready for the rigor of the program. We want to know that they're going to thrive in the program, not just be up to the program, but actually thrive in the program. And I think that the students I've been most excited, the applications I've been most excited about are the ones that we look at all of the material and we think, okay, this is who this person thinks they are right now. I can't wait to see who they become. That's been, and Maximus, you were one of those. That's been the most exciting part of that process for me is that, and that's not something you can plan for, but it in the best way of expressing who you are authentically, it lets us see all the potential of what you could do in a program like this.
100%. Okay, next question, and I'm going to combine two questions here. Let's talk a little bit about life on campus. What does social life look like, and can students be a part of athletic teams? Jordan, I'm gonna throw it right back to you, and then Maximus after that.
Okay, give me that. There were multiple parts there.
Yeah. Social life, clubs, athletics.
Okay, social life and clubs, there's absolutely time for that. I actually was just talking with a student today about the three-legged milking stool of being in the program or even just being at college anywhere, which is that, yeah, the academics are a big part of it, but the community that you build and the connections you make and the friends you make are another really strong leg of that, as are the co-curriculars you do. And all three of those things interconnect because the co-curriculars and the friends can help you start to focus on what you want to study and what you really resonates for you and can help you make that decision on a major or a concentration. So all three of those are hugely important, and we want to be able to have students create that balance. And that's a huge part of advising with students is sometimes to say, hey, leave yourself time to sleep and do something co-curricular. We think very holistically about what our students are doing in the program, and it's not just about the academics. So yes, there's time. That being said, it is a rigorous program, and every student will come to a point where they will have to say, okay, I can't do everything, but here are the things that are important to me. And it's so important to find those. I saw a lot of questions about the varsity sports, and I'm actually really curious from the admissions folks what history we have here, because I don't know any students who are doing varsity in the program currently. And I will say that having advised students who are doing sports, I'm curious about whether that can all fit because I know the sports schedule is really demanding. And the one of the quirks of the BRDD program is that having two different schools with two different schedules is already demanding to balance like 6-hour studios with a variety of different courses at Brown and going up and down the hill, and we make it work. I'm not 100% sure that that can work with every varsity thing.
That's a great question. I think that because the cohort of varsity athletes at Brown is not a giant section of the population of undergraduates, and because BRDD is also just such a small slice, we don't see a lot of overlap of those two realms. But students in the BRDD program historically are certainly active and get involved with sports, but I think it happens more at the club and intramural level than it does the varsity level, just because of the practice schedule. But that doesn't mean that and I don't know, we're always so optimistic here. I'm like, doesn't mean it's not impossible. You just got to figure out the right schedule. So I wouldn't close the door to it, but I think that it would definitely be a bit more complicated scheduling wise. But again, there's so many opportunities for like wellness and athletics at Brown. You'll have full access to the gym. There's an Olympic swimming pool, track, soccer teams, everything like that. It's just a matter of if you were actually on a varsity sports team, it might be a bit more complicated. But again, we never really say never over here.
I think rock climbing is super popular with BRDD students, I can say that. Um, but I do think that if we had students who are interested who are also varsity students, that would be worth reaching out for more conversation to look into that. Absolutely.
Definitely. Okay, the next question I'm seeing here and there, that I'll just answer myself is about the portfolio. So again, that is going to be a requirement for the RISD application, and we will prioritize the RISD portfolio over any visual art that you submit to Brown during the dual degree committee selection process. But again, that's not really something you need to keep in mind right now because your focus at this moment in time should be curating a great application and portfolio for RISD and a great application for Brown. And then as you get further on in that process, then you can start to think about, how you want to showcase your skill set for dual degree itself. Okay, next question is, I'm seeing so many great questions. I just want to say I'm keeping an eye on time. We have 8 minutes left. I don't think we're going to get to all 70 unanswered questions in 8 minutes. We might do a bit of a rapid fire right now if that works. And then with other questions, you can always just send us an email. But let's see. I want to hear about, let's see. Oh my gosh, there's just so many good questions. What would you guys recommend, or how would you guys recommend integrating an interdisciplinary academic curiosity into other elements of the Brown application and supplemental materials? So a little bit more about the Brown application since we talked about the RISD one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a great area of the application to kind of showcase that interdisciplinary flair often ends up being in the student activities section, which is like the extracurricular sheet that you'll submit as part of the Common App. I always suggest to applicants that they think really broadly about this. So I think about like the word extracurricular outside of school. What are those hours and what are you doing with them? We see plenty of applicants that show us these great leadership roles in school clubs and sports and things like that. But if you're spending a significant amount of time helping with a family member every week, or if you're working a job outside of class, those are actually such great examples of responsibility that help affirm our belief that you are going to be able to take this program in stride and handle all of its challenges and be a responsible student across both campuses. So I would say don't shy away from things that don't feel like the cookie cutter extracurriculars. Just think about what are those hours of your day outside of school and what are you doing with them? That can be like a great place to show us interdisciplinary interest.
Great question. The next question, or great answer. The next question is, what resources are available for minority BRDD students? And I saw that related to what sorts of safe spaces and protections do these communities offer for students? I'll start with Jordan and then Maximus if you have anything else to share about what it's like to be a student in the program.
Sure. And I'll say that I mentioned during my slides that we have pre-orientations both for the program and surrounding the program. And some of those pre-orientations are geared towards different student groups to help them connect to those communities on campus. So it starts from orientation in terms of building relationships and building connections with centers and with faculty and with staff around all differences of identity on campus. And then within the program, as part of our peer advisor structure, we have an equity peer advisor who is accessible to all of the students in the program, but with a specific focus on integrating a sense of inclusion and community, and specifically helping students who are coming from historically marginalized groups to find resources on campus, both social and other resources as well, health resources, mental health resources, financial resources. And we all work as a community to find and share those resources and to create a sense of both inclusion and family. But we have specific people who support that in the program. And Maximus, I'll hand it to you.
No, that was a perfect answer. I like there's a lot of help from within the BRD community, but there's also very much a lot of clubs within Brown and RISD that are special interest groups, if that's the phrasing in English. It's like there's the Brown Center for Students of Color, the Asian American Students Association. There's the center for like the I'm sorry, I'm fully blanking on the name, but there's the LGBTQ house that is very much open, Stonewall House, that's very much open to the queer people, in the Sarah Doyle Center for Women's Studies. There's a lot of designated spaces for whatever part of your identity you want to connect people with. And I truly haven't heard anyone not finding a space for them in one aspect or another.
Okay.
I'm going to throw in the chat the RISD page for social equity inclusion if anybody wants to check out things we have there for time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica.
I was going to end with a really quick question for you, Erica, before we open it up to the conclusion, which was, could you talk a little bit more about sort of what, oh, I had the question and then I totally, oh, career options after graduation. Erica has worked across a lot of different institutions and really has that resource of supporting students. So can you tell a little bit about what career resources are available for RISD students, for Brown students, all of that good stuff?
Well, something I want to emphasize is that, a lot of times when you start to look at going to school, you think, I'm going to study this while I get a job in this. And then it's this linear path. And that's not at all what it's like. You will change your mind. You will think you want to do one thing, you will learn something new, and you might get a different passion, or you may find you've got all these different skills you want to combine. So the career centers, and I know at RISD, that's a really robust offering where they can sit down and talk with you about what are your interests? What are you excited about? What are you learning? What classes are you taking? But then they're also doing workshops. I know this next week they're doing an evening workshop on resume development and building. So there are these multiple levels about careers that you go for is trying to figure out, being prepared for right when you exit a program and go into the world for your careers, but then what happens in the next step and the next job, and how do you continue to grow and have success and be fulfilled, right? So these are all things that we're working on with our students in the classroom, but also through the different career centers, and why we want to encourage you to be involved in other things, other clubs, other organizations, leadership positions like Maximus is doing. All of this is building you up and making you prepared to go into your career.
Yeah, that's I think, a great way to wrap us up for today. And also to note, you guys have great questions. It's been a pleasure to talk about some of them today. We will also have another conversational Q&A about the Brown RISD Dual Degree Program on October 22nd. You can find that information in the same place that you registered for this event. And I highly recommend attending that event with the questions that you have today to hear from more Brown RISD Dual Degree students. It was such an honor to have you, Jordan, Thea, Maximos, and Erica here today. You guys are amazing. I hope everyone learned something today. If you have questions at all, reach out to us via the email addresses that we posted before. Attend our upcoming Q&A on October 22nd. And good luck with the rest of your school year. It's been a pleasure, everyone. All right, have a good night. Bye-bye.